You wake up in the morning, go to the kitchen, open the fridge, and get that yogurt pot that you were promised to be a holy medicine for the bones, for the intestines, for the immunity. You've been doing this for months, maybe years, with the tranquil feeling of someone who is taking care of your health. And yet, he continues to feel bloated. The intestine does not work as it should. The disposition did not come. Memory gives you those failures that you prefer not to talk about with anyone. The skin has lost its luster, and you no longer recognize yourself in the photos. Now, answer me honestly, my friend. Have you ever stopped to think that the yogurt that is in your fridge, the same one you consume with the best of intentions, may be silently feeding exactly what you want to fight? And no, I'm not talking about lactose. I'm not talking about calories. I'm talking about a much deeper, much quieter mechanism that happens inside your vessels, inside your brain, inside your cells. A mechanism that almost no one explains because the 15-minute consultation does not give time, and because the market shelf is more interested in selling than in revealing. Pay attention to this detail. There is a silent storm that starts in your intestine and ends in your neurons, and the trigger may be exactly on the spoon you bring to your mouth every day. Think about the dimension of this. Every morning, millions of Brazilians repeat this gesture. The television sent it, the magazine sent it, the neighbor sent it. Yogurt is good for you. Yogurt is life. But the truth behind the label is a treacherous equation that relies on two variables: what's actually inside that yogurt and what's already inside you. Your body is not an empty test tube. It is a living, pulsating city with trillions of microscopic inhabitants. And when you unknowingly dump the wrong fuel into this city, you're not nurturing, you're setting it on fire. The fatigue that knocks you down at 3 in the afternoon, the mental fog that makes you forget where you put your keys, that joint pain that you swear is only from age, often doesn't start in the knee or head. They start in the silence of your gut. And what I'm going to reveal to you today is not an opinion. That's what decades of physiological evidence point to, but which rarely reaches your ears. In the next few words, I'm going to give you two paths that cross. First, you will understand exactly what is the compound hidden in your yogurt that, when it encounters a specific internal environment, ignites the fuse of an inflammation that travels from your intestine to your cerebral artery. And second, you'll discover a mechanism that, when activated in the right way, can turn that same yogurt into a real ally. Whoever leaves now leaves carrying the lit fuse. Whoever stays will understand how to erase it. Here's what almost no one explains. Behind the marketing curtain, what defines whether yogurt is a poison or a medicine is not the brand. It is not the price. It is not the green packaging. It's a microscopic war that goes on in your gut lining. Inside you there is a barrier, a very thin wall, with only one layer of cells that separates the outside world, everything you swallow, from your pure blood. This barrier is called the intestinal barrier. When she is whole, she is like a nightclub bouncer, handpicking who gets in and who stays out. But when she suffers constant aggression, this wall begins to become loose. The junctions between the cells, which should be tightly closed doors, open. This is what the most recent research associates with an intestine that has become porous, like a sieve that, instead of holding the pasta, lets it pass whole into the water. Pieces of dead bacteria, poorly digested protein remains, toxins that should come out in the feces, all of this starts to fall into your bloodstream. Your immune system, which watches over the blood like an army, looks at those strange pieces and panics. He shouts, "Invader!" and he starts firing shots everywhere. These shots are inflammatory substances, and they don't stay stuck in the blood. They travel. They go up. They cross another barrier, the barrier that protects your brain, and begin to cause silent inflammation that erodes your memory and vitality. Now I'm going to put the pedal to the metal on the authority of what physiology explains. I want you to visualize this scene. Inside your gut, there are trillions of bacteria. This community is an ecosystem weighing almost 2 kilograms. When you consume yogurt that's crammed with sugar, modified starch, and artificial thickeners, you're not feeding the good bacteria that protect your barrier. You're hosting a feast for a specific group of bacteria that ferment these ingredients and produce mucosa-corroding gases and substances. But the greatest danger, the one that is the real enemy, is not sugar itself. It is the cascade effect it generates on a specific protein that regulates the gateway to your cells. I'm going to call this protein the master key to the barrier. When this master key is overstimulated by certain byproducts of bad fermentation, it works by opening the floodgates of your gut. It is as if the nightclub's security guard was bribed and opened the cordon. That's it. The barrier is broken. And that changes everything because your body, which should absorb nutrients, starts to absorb garbage. Look at this carefully. It's not milk. It's not natural yeast. It is the chemical cocktail that the industry puts inside the jar so that it becomes creamy and lasts 45 days on the shelf. The first time I saw this happen with brutal clarity was with a patient, Mrs. Elza, 63 years old. She arrived at the office with a tiredness that did not go away with anything. She said, "Doctor, I wake up more tired than when I went to sleep. My body hurts, my head hurts, and I'm getting forgetful. I think it's Alzheimer's, doctor." Dona Elza was the person who did everything right. She had swapped whole milk for light skim yogurt, the one that comes in packs of 6 units, because everyone said it was healthy. She drank 2 a day, religiously. When we went to investigate in depth, what did we find? The markers of inflammation in her blood were through the roof. The protein that indicates fire in the body, which doctors call CRP, was 3 times above the safe limit. But the most shocking thing came when we evaluated intestinal permeability. Her intestines were in tatters, and the only drastic change in her routine in the last 2 years had been the introduction of this yogurt full of fructose and starch. She was not lactose intolerant. She was the victim of a collective deception. Her body was waging a war, and the battlefield was her own bloodstream. I need to pause here. I want to speak directly to you who are listening to me right now while having a coffee, perhaps with your yogurt next to you, or lying in bed, worried about tomorrow. I want you to feel the weight of what I'm going to say, but with respect, not with alarm. I know you want to wake up with energy to play with your grandchildren. I know you want to look in the mirror and see someone strong and lucid. I know you are afraid sometimes of becoming a burden to your children. And I also know that you trusted it. He trusted the commercial. He trusted the standard recommendation. There is no shame in that. The system often treats us as medical records, not as human beings. The consultation of a few minutes only has time to prescribe a remedy for the symptom, but not to explain the cause. But now, here, it is not a consultation. It's a conversation. And what comes next is not a remedy. It is an understanding, a real output based on how your own body works. Science already knows that the damage can be stopped, but you need to know how. Take a deep breath. I'll show you what comes after the break. Now, my friends, I'm going to start unraveling the layers. The first revelation I want to plant in your memory is about protein. Do you think you're consuming protein when you eat yogurt? Yes, yogurt has milk proteins, but the mistake that cancels out the benefit, and here's what almost no one explains, is that the insulin spike generated by the excess sugar in these yogurts modifies the way this protein is absorbed. Insulin is a hormone that, when it is in excess, and this happens after consuming a yogurt with more than 15 grams of sugar per serving, it not only promotes fat storage, but also generates a state of caramelization of its internal proteins. It's as if, on the inside, their fabrics turn to caramel. The collagen in your blood vessels hardens, the lens of your eyes loses its flexibility, and the proteins you've ingested, instead of rebuilding your muscles, become deformed building blocks. Think about it. You drink yogurt thinking it will strengthen your bones and muscles, but the sugar that comes with it is caramelizing your arteries from the inside. This brings me to a highly specific detail that will act as a memory anchor. The human brain consumes about 20% of all the energy you produce, but it has no pantry. It relies on a steady stream of glucose, the sugar that circulates in the blood. But when you give very high spikes in sugar, like those in a falsely healthy yogurt, you force your pancreas to release massive amounts of insulin to clear that sugar from your blood. The cleaning is so abrupt that, soon after, your brain suffers an energetic blackout. It's the mental fog, the feeling of being anesthetized. You call it age fatigue. Physiology calls it a sudden drop in blood sugar. You may be feeling it right now. A mild dizziness, an irritability for no reason. All of this starts with the spoonful of a yogurt that promises energy but delivers a meltdown. And that's not all. Your body, faced with this constant insulin peak, begins to become resistant to it. Your cells start ignoring insulin. And then the pancreas, poor thing, works harder and harder until it runs out. This is the silent path to type 2 diabetes, which doesn't just start with dessert candy. It also starts with the sweetened yogurt that you think is health. Mrs. Elsa's body, which I mentioned, was exactly at this stage, resistant, inflamed, and on the verge of exhaustion, all because of 2 daily pots that she believed to be harmless. And look, I didn't even get to the worst. Sugar is the most obvious villain, but there is another component that acts as a direct corrosive agent on the intestinal wall. I'm talking about the thickeners, gummies, and stabilizers that make yogurt stay smooth, shiny, and creamy for weeks. One of them is extracted from an algae, and the industry uses it because it is cheap and gives a wonderful texture. But inside your intestine, this substance works like sandpaper. It scratches the mucous membrane, irritates the cells, and, in sensitive people, triggers a direct inflammatory reaction. In laboratories, this substance is used precisely to cause intestinal inflammation in animals and to study remedies for colitis. You're consuming a food that contains the same agent that scientists use to cause the disease you want to avoid. Think about it calmly. The industry knows that this substance causes discomfort in a portion of the population, but continues to use it because the amount is considered safe by regulatory agencies. But safe doesn't mean harmless in the long run. If you consume it every day, day after day, the cumulative effect is devastating. It's like dripping a drop of detergent in your garden every single day. One drop does not kill the plant, but within a year the soil is barren. Your gut is no different. And the most tragic detail is that the consumer feels the discomfort, feels the swelling, feels the irregularity, and goes to the doctor to complain. The doctor, without time to investigate the diet in depth, prescribes a remedy for the symptom, and the patient continues to buy the same yogurt because the label says healthy. The system treats the symptom, not the cause. The 15-minute consultation does not have time for that, and the industry profits from the right product used in the wrong way. I want to bring here another story, that of João, 58 years old. He was a strong man, a truck driver, who began to notice a belly that would not come out at all. He cut back on food, cut out beer, started walking. Nothing. The belly was still there, hard, bothering me. He said to me, "Doctor, I look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. It seems that I got pregnant." And he drank yogurt every single day because they said it helped him lose weight. But his yogurt was one of those with fruit pulp, which is actually a disguised sugar bomb. When we swapped the yogurt for a naturally fermented, sugar-free, thickener-free version and explained that he needed to fix the intestinal barrier before anything else, his belly began to shrivel. In 2 months, he lost 6 centimeters of waist. It wasn't the weight. It was the inflammation going away. The belly was the safe where the body tried to store the poison so as not to kill the heart. The second revelation is linked to something you can't even imagine. The real power of yogurt, the reason it exists in ancient cultures as a sacred food, is not in the protein or calcium. It is in live bacteria. We call them probiotics. They are the architects of your intestinal wall. When they are alive and in sufficient quantity, they produce substances that are the fuel for the cells in your colon. It is this fuel that keeps the floodgates closed and the barrier intact. But here's the fatal mistake. Yogurt that stays 45 days in the supermarket refrigerator, which has undergone an ultra-pasteurization process and has been added with preservatives, is dead. It is a graveyard of bacteria. You're eating corpses. And not only that. Thickeners, as I've already said, increase inflammation. So you're consuming a food that is supposed to bring life, but is actually bringing death and more fire to your gut. Mrs. Clousa, 65 years old, came to the office desperate because her intestine was completely stopped. She drank functional yogurt, the kind that promises to regulate the intestine. But the effect was the opposite. She was intoxicated. When she stopped industrial yogurt and started making hers at home, with real milk and a live yeast, in 3 weeks, the intestine was working like clockwork again. She didn't need more fiber. She didn't need laxatives. She needed to stop eating dead bacteria and thickeners that paralyzed her gut. Now pay attention to this detail. What I'm going to say now changes the way you see natural yogurt. Even if you choose a yogurt without sugar, without thickeners, a truly natural yogurt, there is still a risk. And that risk depends on how your gut is. If your barrier is already broken by years of wrong feeding, the simple fact of consuming milk proteins can be a trigger. Whey protein, which is a part of yogurt, is very rich in an amino acid that stimulates muscle growth. This is great for those who are healthy. But if the barrier is loose, that protein is not fully digested. Pieces of it fall into the blood. Your defense system recognizes these pieces as enemies and mounts an attack. This attack generates inflammation, and this inflammation, in turn, can accelerate cellular aging. It's like you're stepping on the aging accelerator while trying to nourish yourself. This explains why some people feel worse when they start eating plain yogurt. They are not allergic to milk. They have a broken intestinal barrier, and the first step is not to take probiotics. The first step is to close the floodgates. Then, yes, probiotics can do their job. This is the big turning point, my friends. The industry sells yogurt as if it were a one-size-fits-all solution. But your body is not the same as your neighbor's body. And that's why I need you to understand the mechanism of calcium. You want strong bones, of course. The fear of osteoporosis is real. Yogurt is high in calcium, that's true. But for calcium to go to the bone, it needs a guide. A special vitamin that works as a traffic cop, taking calcium out of the arteries and taking it to the bones and teeth. Milk yogurt from pasture-raised cows, made in an artisanal way, has this vitamin. Industrialized yogurt, made with confinement milk, with accelerated fermentation and full of stabilizers, has very little. So what happens? You consume the calcium, but without the traffic cop. It doesn't go to the bone. It settles on the wall of your arteries. You are literally calcifying your heart while trying to save your femur. The intention is noble, but the mechanism has been sabotaged. Mrs. Marta, 70 years old, had high blood pressure and tests showing calcification in the arteries. She ate well, but drank industrialized yogurt thinking it was preventing fractures. When we adjusted the source of calcium and inserted foods that carry the guide vitamin, the calcification markers stabilized. Her body was not sick. He was confused. And the fourth revelation is the one that connects the gut to the brain. Your gut and brain are connected by a nerve that runs down from your skull to your belly. It is a highway of information. 80% of the messages go from the gut to the brain. Good bacteria manufacture a fundamental substance for well-being, the one that makes us feel calm and happy. But sugar-laden yogurt feeds the wrong bacteria, which produce toxins. These toxins fall into the blood and reach the brain. There, they awaken the brain's defense cells, which are like caretakers. But these janitors, when they are woken up by toxins, become furious and begin to break the connections between neurons. This is the mechanism of depression and memory loss linked to inflammation. What's more, during the night, your brain has a cleaning system. It is as if they opened faucets that wash the brain, removing the garbage that has accumulated during the day. But for that to happen, you need a deep sleep and a relaxed body. If your gut is throwing inflammation into your blood, your brain doesn't relax. The taps do not open. The garbage stays there, accumulating. That's why you sleep and wake up tired, with a heavy head, forgetful. The yogurt you've been promised for your health is literally preventing you from clearing your brain overnight. Mr. Antonio, 68 years old, was forgotten, repeated stories, got lost along the way. He drank 4 fruit yogurts a day. When we switched to live homemade yogurt with real fruit and a drizzle of pure honey, in 3 months the mental fog began to dissipate. His wife said he started telling jokes again. His brain was not dead. It was stuffy. I need your attention now to a crucial point. If you have identified yourself so far, if you have understood that the problem is not in the yogurt, but in what they did with it and in the state of your intestine, do me a favor. Leave a comment below with your city or state, just so I can see where you're from. Also write if you have ever felt this bloating, this blankness in your memory, or this fatigue after consuming a dairy product. This gesture of community is important because it shows that we are not alone in this search for real information. And if this content is making sense to you, like and share. Not out of vanity, but because someone you love may be, right now, with a pot of yogurt in his hand, mistaking poison for health. We're going to continue now, and what comes next is the climax of what I need to reveal to you. We have arrived at the most surprising moment, the climax. What I'm going to tell you now overturns the argument that just choose natural yogurt and that's it, because the traitor is not only in sugar or thickeners. The traitor is in the environment of your gut and the accompaniments you choose. If you have a gut that's already inflamed, that classic combination of yogurt and granola, excess honey, or candied dried fruit can be an explosive trigger. Granola, which has a reputation for being healthy, is often baked with brown sugar, corn glucose, and refined vegetable oils. When you mix this sugar-filled granola with the protein in the yogurt, you're creating an internal caramelization bomb. The fructose in honey and dried fruits in contact with protein accelerates the formation of advanced glycation end products, which are like skewers that pierce your arteries from the inside. And it doesn't stop there. Many people add those flaxseed or chia flours to yogurt, thinking they are adding fiber. But if these flours are not well hydrated and consumed along with a leaky gut, the particles can irritate the mucosa even more. The result is a breakfast that feels like a health ritual, but is actually perpetuating inflammation. Think about your day-to-day. You wake up, prepare your bowl of yogurt with granola and fruit, sit at the table with a sense of accomplishment. 2 hours later, hunger returns with force. You're irritable, tired, and you don't know why. Your body is asking for real nutrients while dealing with the sugar spike and inflammation you just served. The belly puffs up, the brain slows down, and you blame age. But age is not to blame. What is to blame is the treacherous combination that nullifies the benefits of yogurt. And the most serious thing is that this combination, repeated day after day, undermines your intestinal barrier to the point where even a plain yogurt, with nothing, begins to cause discomfort. You start to think you're lactose intolerant. You cut out yogurt altogether, and you miss the opportunity to use this powerful tool to your advantage. I want you to keep this image. Your gut is like a garden. Live yogurt is the seed of beneficial flowers. But if you throw poison, the flowers don't grow. Sugar, thickeners, and the wrong combinations are the poison. And even if you plant the right seed, if the soil is contaminated, the seed dies. Therefore, the first step in using yogurt as an ally is to prepare the soil. This means, for a period, removing all irritants, sugar, white flour, alcohol, anti-inflammatory drugs without guidance, and yes, industrialized yogurts. Then, introduce foods that soothe the mucosa, such as bone broths, cooked vegetables, and non-acidic fruits. When the soil is less inflamed, then you introduce live yogurt, preferably homemade, fermented for 24 hours, which reduces almost all lactose and increases good bacteria. And you eat this yogurt plain, or with pieces of fresh seasonal fruit without added concentrated sugars. This simplicity is what ancient people did, and they didn't have the modern diseases that we have. The final mechanism, the most beautiful, is symbiosis. When you give the good bacteria the food they need, which is soluble fiber, such as cooked green bananas, thick rolled oats, and yams, they produce those substances that feed the cells of the intestine. The barrier closes, the fire goes out. The brain receives calm signals, sleep deepens. The brain cleaning system works. Joint pain decreases. The memory comes back. The belly swells. All this is not a miracle. It's physiology. It's your body going back to doing what it always knew how to do before being hindered by foods that deceive. And now, my friends, we are going to close this journey. I want to talk looking into your eyes. Science is not here to prohibit. It is here to give you back the power that the system has taken. You don't have to be afraid to eat. You need to have discernment. Yogurt can indeed be a powerful tool for regeneration, if it is alive, if it is part of an intact intestinal environment. When you understand that your health does not start in the clogged artery, but in the spoon you choose, you rescue your autonomy. You are not sick. You are a gardener, and your gut is the soil. If the soil is poisoned with additives and sugar, no flowers grow. But if you put life, friendly bacteria, real fruit fibers, you grow an indoor forest that produces medicine for free, 24 hours a day. Share this video with someone you love, not as an alarm, but as an act of care. Send it to that friend who always complains about bloating. Send it to your brother who is thinking he's too old. Old age is not a disease, silent inflammation is, and you have the key to erase it. Take care of yourself. Each morning, each choice, you are deciding whether your body will be a swamp or a garden. Thank you for staying this far. Until our next meeting.